It's been about an hour since the 43rd public meeting of ICANN closed here in San Jose, Costa Rica. I think it's safe to say that new generic top-level domains again dominated many of the conversations here at this meeting. Rod, how many registrants do you have right now in the new generic top-level domain registration system?
We have 290 registrations or registered users in the system as of March 16th. So that's parties that have gone in and registered themselves and been verified as users to then submit applications for strings subsequently.
Rod, you said that even organizations not applying for new generic top-level domains should pay close attention during this process, during the application process. Why should even non-applicants pay attention?
Sure, because there's a lot of protections that have been built into the program for rights holders, such as the right to object to any string that's applied for any reason whatsoever, at no cost in the original objections period and window. So it's important that, that parties watch if they're concerned that someone else might use their name or their brand and not have a right to do so.
Bottom line, organizations have to be vigilant.
Sure, they should just be watching when we announce the strings on May 1st of this year to review those strings and see if they have any concerns. And if they do, then they can express those online.
Steve, let me ask you about the applicant support program. First of all, can you tell us what that program is? Secondly, what sort of interest are you getting at this stage?
As we put the applicant guidebook together and neared the opening of the window, there was a significant question about whether it would be possible for us to provide assistance for applicants principally from developing countries, but not necessarily, but who may not have had the financial resources of large companies. The board allocated $2 million to help alleviate a portion of the application fee. That goes some distance, but it has to be taken in the context that in order for anyone to operate a new registry, the application fee of $185,000 is only one portion of a significant budget that one has to have. And so our contribution to reduce that $185,000 to, if I recall correctly, about $47,000 is helpful, but not, I don't think it's going to stimulate a lot of people who are otherwise unable to get into the business. There's been quite a bit of interest, and part of what we've had to do is to find people who can evaluate and judge the appropriateness of the application worthiness. And we've not wanted to do that ourselves. We've wanted to have independent people do that. And that's all very much in progress.
How is the search for volunteers for that panel coming?
We're in the process of finalizing that at this time. And so that will be ready and available to go and to support and to analyze the applications that are received. I also just want to note we're very encouraged. There's something called in-kind contributions as well, where any group in the world can offer products or services to support needy applicants. And we have more than a dozen parties that have already gone online and made offers to help, whether it's with DNSSEC consulting, IPv6, with preparing their technical plans, various things, and we're very encouraged to see that, and we hope that more companies and organizations will offer to do so as well, and they can offer that online at ICANN.
You're looking for some fairly high-level qualified people for this panel. Is it going to be tough to get those sorts of candidates for the panel when you're not paying them, when they're volunteers?
You know, I think that we're very fortunate that ICANN draws upon a global community of people interested in the internet, and I think there's a large subset of those who care a lot about needy applicants in this cause. So I would actually anticipate quite some number of excellent candidates coming forward, although I haven't looked at the application list yet.
What's the status right now of the registrar accreditation agreement?
It's still under negotiation, and a document was published in early March before this meeting. There were numerous sessions at this meeting talking about it, and where there were opinions and views shared at different constituency and stakeholder meetings and other discussions. So I would say that those discussions have gained for more information here, and hopefully will be advancing with concrete results soon. We'll see.
Let me ask you a question that I asked you gentlemen in Dakar when we did this interview, and that has to do with batching. First of all, describe what batching is. Secondly, tell me how far we've come in that process since Dakar.
As you're aware, we have this application window that opened in January and will close April 12th. We don't know how many applications will come in. Rod has described the number of registered users, but each one can submit, don't have to submit any, there could be 0, or they could submit up to 50. So there's a very, very wide range of potential applications. And the window even for registering isn't done. So we don't know the numbers. We have very, very carefully sized the evaluation process and the management and the quality control to be able to handle 500 at a time. If we get more than 500, then we have to segment them into what we call batches. And when the first batch is through that process, then we can start the second batch and so forth. So this window is open for what we call a round, and when we get all of them in, that round is broken up into batches of 500 what's on the table, the plan. And we'll do that.
You've already said very definitively that there will be a second round of applications following this first one.
Yes.
And you've also not specified when it would be. When might you be able to announce when that second round would be?
Excellent question. So I think we've tried to be clear that there are fundamentally two variables, two factors that will influence when the second round starts. One is how big the first round is. If the first round has a large number of applications, we have to get through that before we can get to the second round, quite obviously. The second factor is that we've also committed to take a pause and examine how well the system has worked in every way, systems-wise and in terms of the evaluation process and all of that. So we can't pin down a date certain, but we can make rough estimates. And the first part of the rough estimate will depend, as I said, on how big the round is. When we know how many applications are, and that will be within a relatively short period of time after the application window closes, then that factor will be relatively pinned down, and then we can make a rough estimate of the amount of time necessary between rounds. Not a hard commitment, but we can sort of give a window and contingencies. What does all that mean? It's time measured from here in years, but not a large number of years. It's probably a small number of years, and I can't pin it down greater than that because we're running the experiment.
This meeting occurred in the wake of an announcement by the Department of Commerce that it was rewriting the request for proposals for the IANA function. What does that mean for ICANN?
Well, it means that next week we'll be sitting down and having a conversation with NTIA to understand how they got to this point and what's the roadmap that they see going forward. And we're also pleased that last week that we did sign a modification to the agreement that extends the period for another 6 months while we have those discussions.
Steve, in December there's going to be a meeting of the ITU in Dubai, which some have characterized as a potential threat to ICANN. What does this meeting mean for ICANN?
Certainly it's a concern that has been expressed. I don't want to comment on what might happen or what might not happen, but it's certainly in the air and getting a lot of discussion. The ITU is a venerable institution, been around for 100, 200 years, and has played a very important role. And one of the challenges that the Internet has posed in many, many spheres, including the regulatory sphere, is how do you adjust the institutions that were created before to operate in this new world? And so it's quite understandable that the ITU is quite interested in this, and it's quite understandable that we're in the Internet community quite interested in how the ITU thinks about things.
In discussing the issues of conflict of interest and ethics, you mentioned that ICANN was hiring 3 new consultants. What do you hope to achieve with these new hires?
Sure. Well, the board approved a plan for working on conflict of interest issues, and one part of that plan was to hire external experts. So we scanned the world to try to find some of the best experts in the world, and we're very fortunate to connect with German Brooks and his group. They'll be reviewing the code of conduct and bylaws and other aspects of ICANN and our performance in living up to those to help us get, I think, an objective benchmarking of how we're doing and where we need to focus going forward.
Steve, where are you at in terms of finding a successor for Rod as CEO?
The search process is well underway. We had a report today from George Sadowski, who's chairing that committee. Rod very graciously announced in mid-August that he would continue his through his tenure to July 1st, and gave us a very good amount of time to do an orderly search process. We advertised, we communicated with the community, we laid out what criteria we thought was appropriate. We took feedback on all that. We engaged a very high-quality search firm, and we formed a committee within the board to oversee that process. We have received a large number of applications, and we have narrowed that, and we're in that process. We are keeping extremely close control over the specifics out of concern for the privacy of the individuals who have applied, so I'm not going to give numbers or names. But it's moving on schedule, and it's moving along quite well.
Bottom line, when will you make the announcement?
Well, there's always a certain amount of uncertainty about how the details get, but hopefully, somewhere in the May timeframe, probably give or take.
Let me ask both of you gentlemen this question. Looking back at the past week in this meeting here in San Jose, Costa Rica, what stands out in your minds?
A couple of highlights. First, I thought that Senora Presidenta's speech, Laura Chinchilla, was just exceptional. And we were honored to have the President of Costa Rica speaking to us, and with such a hard-hitting, clear, visionary view of the Internet, where it's come and where it needs to go. So it was really just amazing to see such a powerful and elegant leader really engaging in global Internet governance issues. And I think that inspired everyone that was here. And I even had attendees telling me they wish that they had a president like that in their country. So that was very positive. For me, the second highlight was probably the signing of some letters of exchange with LACNIC to add more root server capacity in Latin America, helping us with the LRoot system, where they're going to support multiple instances across the region. And that signals a really warm and welcome partnership with a very important international body, LACNIC, the Regional Internet Registry here. So those were the two highlights out of many.
It's a challenging question because there are highlights across the board. But I certainly have to agree that President Chinchilla's speech was moving. For those of us who have heard many speeches and been around a lot, that speech stands out. I would rate it not just as an excellent speech, but a historic one that will be referenced and will serve as a high watermark for some time to come. In addition, the points that Rod has made are right. A couple of things that stand out in my mind. This was there was a regional summit of the Latin American Caribbean Regional at-large organization, LAC-RALO, and there was a comparable meeting of African GAC members and at-large members here in San Jose, following up on a similar summit that they had in Dakar. So both of those are tremendously important organizational cohesion type events, and really signal a maturation in the growth within the regions of awareness and cooperation, and from an ICANN point of view are just tremendous. That's not the end of it. There was more. Quite a lot of progress on the things you talked about on the RAA, conflict of interest, hard-hitting, very specific kinds of things. A lot of focus on who is, which has been a problem for a long time, and a really quite superior panel showing a lot of the details and bringing people together that had, and I'm sure I'm forgetting several.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
there was a lot.
One of the most impressive things is that it's hard to pick things because everywhere you go, there's an extraordinary amount of action.
It's a rich community with an enormous number of things going on. I also want to say I think there was a lot of healthy discussion and debate on the conflict of interest issues this week, following on some of my remarks, and a lot of reaction to that. And I saw that come in a lot of the sessions, people talking about balance and what's the right way to do things. And I certainly hope and I feel that does help to move the conversation forward, so it's very encouraging to see.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.